I'm going to change things up a little bit because we're also talking about design, and I'm instead going to talk about, where does this go? Design. Design? Yes, okay. So rather than design, perhaps I'll talk about design. We hear a lot about design these days. A lot in the news, in magazines, in the radio. For those of you who are younger, magazines are like a book, sort of, and they were, never mind, it's not important. Radio is like a podcast. Anyway, but people are talking about design, but the more I hear about it, the more I realize I'm not entirely sure what everyone's talking about. Different things we hear, and it's made me want to really, in my own creative team, with other people, with the people who I work with, figure out what it is that we're saying ourselves about design, about what it really is. How do we visualize design? Is this design? Is this design? Design? Maybe. Probably not. All of those were just the images that came up when I did a stock photo search for design. And frankly, I didn't really relate to any of them as design that much. But when we're defining design, when we're talking about what it is that we do with people who ask, hey, what is it that you do? It's actually kind of a hard thing to say. I should be qualified. I went to design school, a school with design in the title of the school. Got my degree in it. Why is it so hard to tell them what design is? And I think the reason is because everybody here probably has a slightly different idea. But since I'm the one up here and you're the ones down there, I get to decide what it is today that I want design to be. That was the next slide. There was supposed to be a reveal. So let's go there. I came up with this phrase. If you've worked in the visual side of design, perhaps you have been nauseated by the use of this word. Any client, this phrase, any client who's come to you and said, I don't know, it's missing something. Could you make it pop? Or my logo is looking really small. Did you make it pop? Here's a balloon from my kid's birthday party. Maybe you'd like to make it pop. Make it pop represents the problem we have in design. The problem is people coming to you and asking you to do things visually to solve a problem that you don't really understand because they think they understand something that they don't really want to understand. Fortunately, I decided to make it into a clever acronym so that we can talk about really making it pop in a good way. For the first P, I decided to do something never before done in a keynote presentation before, and that is go to the dictionary. Webster's Dictionary defines design. Okay, we can skip to the part that I want to talk about. The purpose or intention that exists or is thought to exist behind an action, fact, or material object. The or thought to exist is important because, like any one of you who have ever been in art school knows that you can apply the meaning to stuff later if you really have to, but I like to focus on the actual purpose part. Purpose is the most significant thing that I wanted to talk about. The other two letters, you can skip those. But purpose is something that even my 4-year-old daughter, who is also the illustrator that I hired to do my headshot in the beginning, she understands the importance of purpose. It's the why. Why do I have to go to bed? And why is that? And why is that? And keep asking the whys until you get the answer that you can use. Let's say a guy walks into a hardware store and asks the clerk for a hammer. What kind of hammer? Well, I don't know, you're the expert. You pick out a hammer for me. So he goes, he finds a hammer, brings it back, gives him a claw hammer. Guy goes, after paying for it with his PayPal mobile app, and comes back the next day furious, says, well, you are the worst hardware store and the worst hardware store clerk I have ever spoken to. That hammer didn't work at all. I spent all day trying to tear down my living room wall, and I barely made a dent. Well, had the guy known, he would have offered a different hammer. But it's the fault of both parties. And while it's an absurd example, it's relevant to what we do in design. No matter what type of design it is that you do, you need your objective. You need to understand why you're doing what it is that you're being asked to do, or why you're doing what you've decided to do. You know, hold on to the purpose, and in that you can know Daddy needs a headshot. Get out the magnet board. Or, as in the case of a better example, you can, I'm sorry, this is a quote, love this quote from Paul Rand. I will solve your problem and you will pay me. Because there is value in problem solving. And problem solving is what design can and should do. Let's talk about drugs. Most of your medicine cabinets probably don't look like this. I know mine has a lot more drugs in it. But when I went to get my prescription filled a little while ago, I was out of town, it was a family event, and I didn't have my local pharmacy. Somebody suggested I go to Target. And I said, okay, I went, and I came back, and I was super excited. And I grabbed my brother and other people and gathered them around, and I said, have you seen this? And they're like, yeah, it's a prescription bottle. I'm like, but no, look, you don't have to turn it back and forth in order to read the label. If it falls down, you can still see what the medication is. You can read where all the, it's awesome. You can say it doesn't fall over because of the shape. And they're like, yeah, she's talking designy stuff again. But this is really cool. And so I looked it up. Turns out it came from a really valuable sort of purpose. The designer, a woman named Deborah Adler, discovered that the prescription bottles weren't just ugly and kind of outdated. They're potentially lethal. Her grandmother, Helen, who is, I believe, pictured here, though that may be an actor portraying Helen, took her husband's medicine by mistake. A recent survey done by Target, for good reason, points out that 60% of people interviewed said that they had also taken the wrong medication on accident. That's a problem. Well, it's a problem if it's supposed, if you're not trying to take the wrong medication on purpose. But she got in there and changed, with real purpose, the design of something that had been around for a long time. And people are noticing. Other companies are starting to change the way that they used to do things. This actually brings me to a really important point about organization. You used to never know what you were going to get on a prescription bottle if you went to different pharmacies. Typically, pharmacy label, pharmacy logo, really high. Information, maybe the patient's name, lower stuff, medication, who knows. Typical example. This puts the patient's name at the top, puts the medication second, all the other information falls to the bottom. Where did Target put their own logo? As sort of a brand design guy, I don't know that I would have jumped all over that recommendation, but they're not making it pop. But it is down at the bottom where it is needed, because it is useless to the person who just needs to take their medication. They put all of the cautions on the back. They redesigned the icons so that they would make more sense. If you've ever looked at the icons on traditional prescription, they're hilarious and they make no sense. They also created this fantastic set of colored bands that go on your bottle. When I went to fill my prescription, none of my other family members had ever done this before, so they asked me, what is your favorite color? I chose one, and now every time I go to any Target and get a prescription filled, they put my color on the bottle. Once again, making it very difficult for other people in the family to accidentally take my medication. It makes it a little bit harder to hold on to your own medication if people are trying to take it, but The organization is the O. Can we see where this is going? There's another P later, so you're gonna have to wait to see what that is. But organization is absolutely critical to everything that we do as designers. Designers can, in any field that you're in, if you're in graphic design, if you are in product design, UX design, whatever it is, you can only be as good as the organization of your information. If you were a graphic designer, somebody told you to put all of their information about their work history and their education and their skills all on one piece of paper, so it's in one place, and you did this, they'd say, well, that's not a resume. And you said, you didn't ask me for a resume. So you missed the purpose. But you also missed the organization. Without organization, we can't have, without purpose, we can't have organization. Without organization, we can't have design. I think everyone would agree that what's on the left is not designed, not because it's not beautiful, not because it's using a typeface that's ugly, but because it's not serving a purpose, and it's not organized. Once you know the purpose, you can use style elements and things to organize it to make the information more accessible and to make it make sense. Organization of information is so much more critical than style that sometimes people forget about how important it really is. You can have the most beautifully designed sign, however, stainless steel, engraved, mounted flawlessly to the wall, but if the arrow is pointing the wrong way, you've failed. We take organization for granted sometimes when it is really the core of communicating things properly with design. I would like to put a really strong emphasis on this point. Design doesn't equal style. Design isn't the execution of the framework. It's not the wireframe interpretation of the flow that is pretty. Design is the purpose, it's the organization, and it is the sophistication of clear communication. Leonardo da Vinci said, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. And I presume he said it in Italian, so I don't mind the variation. I'm quoting him, and I'm not even sure if he was the first one to say it, but it's true. Simplicity in design can be extremely useful. It can be revolutionary, it can be beautiful. Sophisticated simplicity can be powerful, and truly sophisticated. Simple design, however, is not just simple. It's not just easy. It requires a lot of effort. And the third P, planning. Abraham Lincoln was said to have written to a friend once that he was sorry he didn't have the time to write a shorter letter. It's a great idea to show the importance of planning. With planning, you can make things simple. By putting in the effort ahead of time, you can really you can create something that is simple but powerful and that communicates and solves all of the problems in your purpose. And deliver what it is that you, I'm sorry about this, really deliver on great design. To understand planning, we really don't have to think about it very hard. We understand how much planning goes into creating things. But I've noticed when I ask architects, because design is important to architects in their area of design, to talk about the design of their building, the most recent thing that they've done. They never talk about the paint on the outside or the landscaping or the fantastic designer or mid-century modernist furniture that they put on the inside. They talk about the land. They talk about the story of it. They go way back. One time, seriously, an architect that I asked the question, hey, tell me about the design of your building. He started, well, about 25 years ago, And the story continued up into about the point where they broke ground. And then he was done. Once the planning is done, once the purpose is there, the organization is there, and the planning is, the design has happened. The rest is style. The rest is decoration. And style can be, jumping ahead, style can be an excellent tool. Style can be a valuable resource in organizing information, in displaying things, but it isn't design. One interesting case study that I think everybody has seen firsthand is the result of the 1994 redesign of Federal Express by Landor to FedEx. People talk about all different aspects of this, especially in graphic design, which is what my background was in, but also in branding and all the important corporate design aspects. They talk about the hidden arrow or not so hidden arrow implying forward, it's fast, it's narrow. But they talk about the brand architecture of it, the simplicity of the brand architecture, getting all these different parts of FedEx together. One thing that I think is fascinating, and my favorite part about it to really illustrate planning, is the airplanes. They did some research, Landor. They went to FedEx and said, if you are using this blue, your planes are getting really hot and expanding. This is creating more drag. And if you painted them white, you would probably save a lot of money. Turns out they did. They saved somewhere in the neighborhood of statistic per year on each one of their planes. It's thousands of dollars per year on each one of the planes, legal disclaimer. But that's huge to me. That's design to me. It's not only is it style, but it's it's organization, it's problem solving, it's all these great things. Design. I had some other things that I was going to talk about, but I've totally used up all of my time, and I'd like to just leave you the point that design is really more and more the way that we solve problems, the way that we start things. It's not the way we finish them. And we have to look at design at the very beginning. It's not just an afterthought for people to say, hey, we created this thing, now could you just design what it looks like? It's everywhere. If you ask where, it's in the question. Design is here, right now, among all of us. We have people who are interested in design, people here in this building to go to a design bar camp, probably because they didn't know I was going to be talking. But this is where it starts. It's here. It's in the initial ideas for a business. It's in the long-term plan. It's in the initial whiteboard drawings that you're doing. When you first get that incredible spark of a great idea, that's where you start designing. That's where you start planning, organizing, and really refining your purpose. And it's up to us, all of us, as designers, to make it pop.